The Hagmann Hagmann Report for today. It is Friday, a fantastic Friday edition. It's May 15th, 2015. Coming to you live from the studios, the new studios of the Hagmann Hagmann Report, based in northwestern Pennsylvania. I'm Doug Hagmann at the helm with fellow investigator, researcher, and most importantly, my son Joe Hagmann. Together, we are the Hagmann Hagmann Report, what we like to call America's premier father-son investigative reporting team. And our job is to bring you the news that propels the headlines, the stuff that really is behind the smoke and mirrors of the corporate media, the news that is convoluted, that's twisted and hidden amid a funhouse of the smoke and mirrors and the carnival.
When we're allowed to read it.
When we're allowed to read it, indeed. We do the headline and news triage so you don't have to. And we'd like to thank each and every one of you, all new listeners, for checking in from all over the world. You know, this weekend I'm going to be sending out some emails to people. I've been so remiss. Having moved, the studio and trying to get settled, but we really want to thank each and every one of you for all you've done and all you do, your prayers, your communications, the information that you sent. You know, it's amazing the information that we get. It's we're going to be getting into that here in a little bit, but I do want to just say that for new listeners, we broadcast each and every weeknight from Monday through Friday, 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern. Our home base on the Internet is HagmannandHagmann.com, and we're simulcast by the Christians United Broadcasting Network. Our home base, again, HagmannandHagmann.com. From there, you can access us live, as well as all of our past shows, our social networking sites, and most importantly, our original investigative reports. And once more, this weekend we're gonna really use the time this weekend away from the shows to really advance that. Yeah, relax. Right. No,
I got planned.
Yeah. No, you don't. No, you don't. You didn't check your schedule, right?
Yeah.
All right. Tonight, this being Friday, this is a kind of a follow-up Friday. We're going to hit a number of topics this evening that we really need to get into. We've had, this past week, it was a good week. Yesterday, of course, going backwards, we had Coach Dave Dobbenmeyer and Greg Jackson. Yeah, I didn't forget his name. I was looking at something else here. Folks, GregJackson.com, 2 G's. GregJackson.com. God love him. Brilliant author, brilliant man. And also Coach Dave Dobbenmeyer, another brilliant man. I think he's brilliant. He certainly is motivated. And his website, ptsalt.com and saltandlightbrigade.org. And Coach Dave Dobbenmeyer, as we did that show last night, Joe, June 14th, noon to 3, 60th anniversary of the insertion of Under God in the Pledge of Allegiance. We're going to be in Washington, D.C. in solemn prayer in front of the Supreme Court.
Yeah, way to lock us in for that one.
Well, yeah, I'll tell you something, okay, and we're
it's definitely something that we need to do, and it's very important.
It is.
Coach Dave said no speakers, doesn't matter, who you are when you're there. You're just another person there praying for.
That's right.
The Lord to move.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I do like. No rally, no speaker, nobody on the dais. Everyone's standing shoulder to shoulder. And it would be my dream to have representatives or senators there of course, I wonder if that would ever happen, but standing shoulder to shoulder with Christians and conservatives and patriots, and it doesn't matter who you are, you're at the same level. And no speakers, just presence, just your presence. And if we can overwhelm the area, but it wouldn't matter if there was 330 or 3,000. I'd like to see it, tens of thousands, but I think it's a great initiative, and I think it would send a statement. It would send just a tremendous statement, but more importantly, it's an appeal to God Almighty. And isn't that really what it's all about? we can move mountains that way. And then we, of course, Steve Quayle with Ross Powell this week. And we're going to be following up on that, about the criminalization of cash and what's going on here with respect to the economy.
Because, we got news on that today. Denmark, the next country to go cashless. If you remember, India went cashless not too long ago. Today, it's been announced that Denmark, and I got to recheck the facts on India, Denmark is set to become the first country in the world to make cash payments obsolete. But I thought India did that a year or two ago.
Well, what we're seeing here, whether it is the privatization of the Internet. Now, some people might object to that terminology. It may not be precise, but it's more of a consolidation or a centralization. Because we all know that if you've got, well, look at the media. You know, Joe, what are the numbers? In 1985, it was printed on our brochure here. I don't have a brochure in front of me, but I think there were
ratings.
No. There are 6 companies right now that control all of the media, everything you read, see, and hear in the corporate media. But in 1985, there are how many different hundreds? You know, hundreds of tens of hundreds, thousands.
Yeah, and I've been following every month. They release the new demo numbers and new numbers for audience attendance for these networks. And, man, you should see MSNBC and CNN. I mean, Fox, I guess, by default, because I don't want to say they're the right side of anything, but...
Well, they're considered, I suppose.
It's because it's even more deceptive than the other ones, because at least we know where they stand. With Fox, they just... they're reporting to a party-based ideology instead of a belief system, and it's not the Lord's belief system either that they care about.
Right.
But we're talking like 50,000 for prime time on MSNBC in this quarter or this month, last month.
50,000 what?
Viewers? Like live listeners. Horrendous numbers.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty bad. How do they pay their bills?
Well, GE owns them, which is owned by the government, so.
Oh, okay.
They just print the money.
Well, that's a good...
Like all good media corporations.
That's good. Yeah, that's... oh, wow. I would like to continue also by saying this. Today is our 5th broadcast from our new studio. We're still having equipment installed. Now, it was kind of a turnkey operation in the sense that we had some pretty heavy duty. We have already in place big lines to push audio and video out to bring it in, and that's being tweaked as certain things with respect to the audio levels of our guests.
And let me ask a question for the listeners in chat. Has anybody had an unusually slow day trying to use the Internet today? Yeah,
I'd like to know that as well. It seems like we were throttled here today at the studios and our offices, which are interconnected side by side.
I mean, just pulling up a simple website.
And even at my home, actually.
Downloading audio clips for the show. It took like 5 minutes for YouTube to open, and just really strange things. And it was all across the board, both studio computer, laptops.
Right.
Didn't matter what I was doing. It seemed to be running slow. So I just want to know if that's something that's universal,
feedback.
Or was the announcement that the Internet was going to be dropped, the control of the Internet be dropped by the USA, did they let some strings loose on the not having to worry anymore about the controlling it now while they still have it until they hand it over?
Yeah, that would be interesting to hear from you folks.
There's 3 yeses.
Okay, all right. Yeah, there's something not right here with this, and this is the other part we're going to get into, talking about the Internet. I do want to warn people. I brought our studio dog, or our dog, into the studio. She's napping right now, but if you hear a yap, that's hey, you know what, she's part of our family, and she might have something to say.
Or she might be scared of her shadow, which she sometimes gets to, and she does. She's developed a very high-pitched bark when she barks, and you're not expecting it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, with our old dog King, it was so deep and loud, it wasn't the startling type, really.
Oh, it was more like thunder.
Yeah.
But at any rate, so I'm not going to make any apologies because, you know what, a day in the studio. She had to check things out. Now that we have all the cables pretty much off the floor, and but anyway, so a good show planned for you this evening. A lot of information we want to provide to you. We've done a lot of research, but again, I just want to say that this is day 5 in the studio, and still getting used to the surroundings and the switches and everything, and we're still having upgrades being done. So
what do you think? Like 2017, you'll be?
Yeah, no. This weekend, we're going to be spending a lot of time doing things. Now, the real notable audio equipment that's going to make a big difference in terms of callers and in terms of
volume control
is that will be flying probably in a couple of weeks.
Now we just have to learn how to use it.
Yeah, well, and it's kind of a big technical thing going on here, but hopefully within the next several days, what we'll do is create some videos that will include showing everyone the studio that really that's owned by all of you, and putting out some informational videos as well, because we've got to hit the ground running. And I was talking to Joe, and it's a very tiring process to get things going. And I mean, it's to build from the ground up, or not from the ground up, but to really put things together. It's just it's just us. I mean,
so much more space. I get tired by the time I get to my desk, and
yeah. And of course, we've got our entire volume, or our entire library now within arm's reach. Well, I shouldn't say within arm's reach, but our entire library is covering one wall.
It looks nice too.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty good. So, in a conference area, and so a lot of good things taking place. But so if we sound tired, we are. And but I just kind of want to give an update about that. But there's so much going on, and I also want to drive home the point that we are expecting. We can see the writing on the wall. We're expecting some sort of censorship with respect to the internet. Now, we don't know if it's going to be a year, a month, a week, 2 weeks. We don't know when, but we are making plans for alternative ways. And when we're ready, we'll announce them, and we'll announce them at the same time. We have to be very not cagey, but very strategic about making announcements, because we don't want to show our hand to the enemy. And we say the enemy. Well, who's the enemy? Well, the people that don't want the truth out there, of
and
course.
That could be because we have a very strong hand, or we're bluffing.
Well, I don't. You know what?
Thinking of it in poker terms.
You're right, and
you just don't know.
Well, yeah, we'll say that, but we don't. Well, it's almost. We don't want to seem like we're self-serving, nor do we want to seem like we're bluffing at all, especially to the listeners, because we want to be as transparent as possible. But to the enemy, yeah, let them wonder, right? With us, what you see is what you get.
Is temporary. We figure out what the weaknesses are, what the vulnerabilities are, and we build from there.
Yes.
Moving into the studio was the first step of many we needed to take to properly expand and become more efficient.
And that's the thing too. There's this level of expectation from us as stewards. For those who have supported us and are supporting us, we are very, very cognizant, very aware that we the way I look at it, and the way Joe looks at it, is those of you who are supporting us and have supported us, we are answerable to you in terms of, well, were you good stewards? Are you being good stewards? And we're very conscious about that. And there's nothing that we do or buy or invest or whatever you want to call that without a lot of prayer and a lot of preparation and a lot of, do we need this, and is this the way to go, and will this serve us today and into the future, whatever, if it's a piece of equipment or whatever. But it's to to get our message out, to reach a wider audience, and to make the listening experience and soon the audio-visual experience a much better one for you. And I never planned on being here. Had no intention on being here whatsoever in terms of where we're at with this show. But God has blessed us with an opportunity, with a forum, a venue, and we have to.
Awesome listening audience.
Yeah, very much, and it's because of all of you that we're all in this together. We really are, and man, I'll tell you, this morning, as I usually do, I leave my home and I'll take my dog and we'll walk and we'll play ball a little bit, and that gives me time to think. I mean, that's why I start my day, whether it's 5 o'clock or 6 or 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, depending on it doesn't matter. And just thinking about the awesome responsibility that I think we have to you, and just talking from the heart now. When we did investigative work, we got paid for the investigative work we did, and I remember working for a client one time, and it was a huge client in our town. Now, I'm not going to mention the name, but
doesn't matter. They're out of business here anyway, aren't they?
No.
Here.
No.
No?
No.
Oh.
No. Huge client. And
was this before my time?
Yes, it was before your time. And I remember doing an investigation, and they hired my company and me as an investigator to investigate an issue of liability. And it was an insurance company, okay? And it was a very extensive loss. I'm talking about, at the time, probably $2.5 million loss exposure. And their client, a corporation, at issue was their client. Was there any liability on their client's part, and hence their part? Well, come to find out, yes. I mean, their client was in the wrong, and it was a corporate deal, and pretty convoluted, pretty intense. So when I did the investigative report showing step by step that their client, and hence their company, had a level of exposure, that was not what they wanted to hear. That was not what they wanted to see in writing. And I remember getting called into the CFO, the boardroom. There were a couple of pretty high-ranking corporate officials. And they said, "We can't accept your report." And I said, "Well, why not?" Well, this report exposes us to I'll say it was like $2.25 million liability. And I said, "Well, this is the truth. This is what happened. I mean, you asked me to investigate this. We did. Here's the evidence, the documentation showing where you've got this exposure." And they said, "Well, basically, how dare you put us in this position?"
What do you expect? They're an insurance company.
Well, it's the truth. See, what they wanted was...
They don't want it the truth. They want it to be saving money.
Exactly. And I remember like it was yesterday the one man, and he looked at me and he said, "You're never going to get another piece of business from us again." And he said to me, "You'll never, you'll never, as long as I am around, you'll never work for any of the companies that we're associated with, the subsidiaries, our subsidiaries." And I said, "Well, so be it. I mean, the truth is the truth, and if this goes to court, which it was headed right to court, I'm not going to testify to something that is untruthful." But so the reason I mention that is because that's the way I feel. I feel the responsibility to the listeners. Sometimes the truth is uncomfortable, and sometimes the truth is not what you want to hear. But wouldn't it be better to know than to be surprised?
And we can spin it in a way where it's almost okay.
Well, who wants to spin anything,
I'm just kidding.
Oh, no.
That speaks to the level of insanity that the mainstream media companies work at. Regardless of the issue, they always have their personal spin. And they can take one factoid and spin it 100 different ways and just shred any resemblance of the truth right out of it, the real reasons behind them. It's all manipulation. It's all distraction, deception. Think about this. The Trans-Pacific Partnership was delayed by the Democrats for whatever reason. Boom, that night Amtrak train crashes. The Amtrak train story takes up the headlines of every front-leading and back-end story for every news agency, every paper, publication for days. And what do? They sneak that vote back in. You don't hear a peep about it.
That's right.
It's almost like it was planned.
Well, they use the cover of of course, blood leads. If it bleeds, it leads is the mantra of the media.
What do you mean we're handing over control of the internet? Look, ISIS.
Yeah,
this is how it goes. Obama, release your birth certificate. Killed bin Laden.
Yes.
$2.3 trillion missing. 9/11.
Yeah, there you
go. Over and over again.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things. Again, I just just to recap, I just want to say thank you to everyone, and we want to say thank you to everyone. And you'll see not hopefully, but it's our intent and our objective to really be pushing out some very quality, very quality product, truthful and comprehensive to all our listeners, our readers, and ultimately our viewers. Next week, we've got a pretty good week planned. We have to.
We have more than half. It's scheduled Monday.
Augusto Perez, Monday, right?
Yep, he's going to be with us on Monday. Stan Dale will be our guest Tuesday. G. Edward Griffin will be coming on Wednesday. We're waiting to hear back from Mr. Jonathan Kahn and a few others who we contacted. So, and we had some listener input asking for Russ Dizdar, L.A. Marzulli, and there was one other one in there.
Yeah.
I can't think of it at the moment, but we will definitely work to get Russ and L.A. Back on the show.
Right, and G. Edward Griffin's going to be on for perhaps half the show, an hour and a half, who knows? But he's always a pleasure to interview, to talk with, and we're going to get his take on where things are with the Fed, with the dollar, with
the UN too.
Yes.
This guy has been at the forefront of the investigations before probably my dad was born, investigating these agencies.
That's a stretch, but okay.
I don't know how old he is, but he has a great body of work, and his books are must-haves for those who are looking into these things.
Exactly. Well, okay. A couple of things too. Well, we should start off with
George Stephanopoulos donating to the Clinton Foundation. Amtrak going 107. No.
The amount of information right now is overwhelming, and I know I hope, I just hope, ladies and gentlemen, that you feel that you don't get overwhelmed with the information. That you've got some level of stability, knowing that when you hear what we're talking about, despite its weight, that you've got the you're centered enough within the Word and protected by the blood. You're not suffering anxiety from it.
Yeah, and I don't know how many people are like me, and I don't know, Dad, what you go through, but once it gets to that point, it's like my brain just unplugged.
Yeah.
It goes into a default mode. Looking at the news all day, trying to figure out what is important, trying to get the real information about the things that we are looking into, but being drowned out by, other stories that have no importance or very little significance at the time. I usually just unplug and start going back to healthcare legislation and
sometimes you
Bibles.
just have to walk away.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to walk away from it, unplug, take your dog for a walk, a longer walk in my case, or just go out and smell a flower, go out and be with family. It's important, or spend some time in prayer, or read the Word. Whatever you've got to do, just protect yourself from that self-destructive mode of just being so wrapped up in this. Now, that doesn't mean we can't fight. We can't take up the mantle and fight, but sometimes a rest is required.
And before I forget, an announcement from Coach Dave. He sent this just before the show.
Yes.
Hey, Joe, please announce tonight that the Hovind trial has been delayed, so that anyone traveling to Pensacola will not go. The Hovind filed a motion to dismiss the prosecution's request for more time to respond, and he asked the listeners to pray that the case will be dismissed. So anybody who had plans to go to Pensacola, hold off on those because the trial has been delayed.
Okay. So, those people intending on going to the 18th of May start of the Hovind trial, please adjust your schedules. Know that that's not going to take place. Watch and listen to Coach Dave Daubenmire, ptsalt.com, for updates on that. I'd like to start out kind of in general, if I may. This just in here, Faith Under Fire, Prison Next Step for American Christians, because I think that this addresses some of the issues that we talked about earlier this week, and kind of a theme that's running, and a theme that's going to extend into what we're going to be talking about tonight with respect to the Internet. Former Congressman Frank Wolf has warned that Americans' freedom of conscience is now under attack, and it's mainly Christians with conservative values who are in the crosshairs of the new champions of political correctness. Now, this former congressman is 76 years old. He's seen things. He's been around. And he said pretty much what Coach Daubenmire and Greg Jackson and others have said, and that's this. We as Christians will likely have to resort to civil disobedience because our views are increasingly considered intolerant now.
No, let's go through this slowly here, because we saw something on Steve Quill's site this week.
Yes, we did.
Pertaining to Romans 13, I don't know who the pastors were that were speaking on the video, but Pastor, was it Butch Paw?
Butch Paw was the...
issued a correction, I guess you'd say. The guy the pastor on the video said, well, we have to obey the authorities. God implements the authorities, and we have to obey them because we don't want to go to jail, and we don't want to go against that. Well, we have to understand there are earthly authorities, and then there's the godly authority. And I like how Butch Paul made the comment that where they were reading from in the Bible was written from jail due to what would be called today civil disobedience.
Isn't that something?
When a decree was issued in Babylon that all people had to bow down to the statue of Nebuchadnezzar, did Daniel obey that law? No, he practiced civil disobedience. And how was that? Well, he only continued to worship the one true God. And when that turns into civil disobedience, jail is irrelevant.
You know, it makes me think too about the bakers, the cake bakers. Okay, now the Christian cake bakers who were forced out of business because they wouldn't cater to the homosexual request or demand that they bake a cake for a homosexual wedding ceremony. It makes me wonder, and if you look in totality,
see, I would make a cake. It
would
not have been pretty though.
No, we can't do that. But see, are there Muslim bakeries out there? Are there Muslim-owned bakeries?
We saw this. Somebody went in and had tried to do the same thing as a joke, I believe. A person posing, or maybe was homosexual, had a overly he had a very pronounced homosexual lisp, I guess you could say.
He was flamboyant, shall we say.
That's the word. And went into this bakery. There was a woman behind the counter. I don't know if it was her bakery, but they were Muslim. And I don't know I didn't read the whole thing. I just kind of skimmed through the video, so I don't know what the design was or what the wording was, but asked if they would make this cake. And the lady's like, "No, get out of here."
Right. So
and the story died there.
Well, yeah. Where are the people who are going after the Christians? They're not going after the Muslim bakeries, Muslim-owned bakeries. Well, and I understand that.
To be fair, how many homosexuals are going to go into a Muslim bakery when Muslims will?
But right. I get that.
They kill homosexuals.
Yeah, I understand that, but still, you would think even on the numbers, because the numbers are so perhaps low, nonetheless, that doesn't make any difference. But certainly, the Islamic-owned bakeries who are refusing are not the targets here. It's the Christians. So Frank Wolf, and those people old enough will remember, he was a 17-term congressman from Virginia, and he said that when tolerance is demanded, when Orthodox Christianity is deemed intolerant, and when government and even society fails to extend tolerance to people of faith, we are headed down a perilous path. Now,
let me ask this question.
Sure.
Open-ended, no need for response. Does it offend anybody that when Christianity is called intolerant? Does it bother you guys? Any Christians out there? It shouldn't. I'm just asking.
Yeah, right. Rhetorically, yeah. Well, Wolf, during his 17th-term congressional stay, of course, he was from Virginia. He was a champion for religious freedom throughout that time, and since his retirement in this past January, he's become a senior fellow at the 21st Century Wilberforce Initiative, which advocates for religious freedom worldwide. He delivered the May 7th speech at an event here in it was the Harvard Center for American Political Studies. His address was called "After Hobby Lobby: What is Caesar's and What is God's?" That was the title of his speech. That's the 2015, their annual conference on Law, Religion, and Health in America. Now, if you might have seen this, folks, the Christian Post reported that Wolf's main point was that freedom of conscience has long been understood as important for religious freedom, and our founding fathers had really believed that. And I know that you can. I know that some were deists and some were.
Most were deists.
Right. I get that.
And then others were evil.
Well,
Benjamin Franklin is an example.
Well, yes, but built in, and I think by divine authority, into the Constitution of our fine republic, was the freedom, and remains so far, as tattered as it is, this freedom of conscience.
Well, I don't want to turn this into a debate, but I just want to make the point from reading the Life of Washington and from reading John Adams' diary. From what I gather, they understood that in the public realm they couldn't continue to be associated or pledging allegiance to the crown, but they didn't care if the crown got their money from taxation or association here, as long as it wasn't something that got in the way of establishing their union and having their breakaway from it.
Two separate issues. I understand.
No, it's just weird when you read the histories because it's confusing. It's almost like
that's true, and you know what even makes it more confusing? If those people who like to watch the History Channel and the various subsets of the History Channel, the various iterations of History 1, 2, 3, whatever, American Heroes Channel, and all of these different channels on television, you are going to get some revisionist history, some revised history, and I think it makes it even more confusing. Which, let me step backwards in addressing the issue with the internet tonight. There are so many people who depend upon the internet for information right now, today, in 2015. I would submit to each and every one of you, rather than, for example, use the internet to search history about our founding fathers, about our Constitution, I would submit that go to the library, books, physical books.
Used bookstores.
Yes. Really, to me, that's important.
One of the things we did when we used to travel for investigative work, no matter where we went, we would always stop at any used bookstores that were in towns.
That's right.
That's how we compiled half the library we have. And we would find, treasures in those
older books that were written in the early 1900s, and that weren't,
$2 for 1984, or some Zbigniew Brzezinski's foreign policy books, or I couldn't tell you how many political books that have been used as examples to show the plannings and the next steps of these elitists came from these people. They write in their own books.
Right.
So few people choose to read them for whatever reason. Like Henry Kissinger's latest book, New World Order. I have not read that one yet, but I'm sure there's some gems in there.
That's right. So I would really recommend, where possible, have good, solid books from as old as possible, because at some point I do believe that libraries will be deemed irrelevant, and I just
and the Bible
so
will be thrown out. It will be illegal.
Yeah.
We know that even the Scripture says in prophecy that there will be a famine in the land, but it won't be for bread or water. It will be for the word of the Lord.
Right. Well, getting back to what Wolf was talking about, he referenced, and I found this very interesting, a subtle but insidious trend in which the government is expanding into areas more likely to infringe upon conscious rights. And the trend was at the heart of the Supreme Court case involving Hobby Lobby. And I watched in almost real time, folks, if you go to the different right-left forums on the Internet, the progressive Marxist communist ideology, those people adhere to that. Their heads were exploding with respect to the Hobby Lobby. And the conservatives, in many cases, were addressing it superficially without really giving it a lot of thought and a lot of investigative research. But the Hobby Lobby, in case you don't know what that's all about, it's a Christian-owned craft supply chain, and Obama's birth control mandate, according to the Christian Post article, this being at issue with respect to the Hobby Lobby. The owners of the Hobby Lobby, the Green family, who owns Hobby Lobby, they're very pro-life. The Obama regime sought to require them to pay for health insurance coverage for contraception, for pills that could cause an abortion, basically. And what Wolf said was, we are witnessing the imposition of a new state religion, and he called it progressive liberalism as the religion. Now, I would take it a step further to say it's a Marxist ideology or a communist ideology.
We have a sound clip. I don't know when you want to play this. It's from 1984 from George Orwell.
Yeah, why don't we do that now? I think now's a good time, folks. This I think this is from the
2011. It was uploaded to YouTube from the movie 1984. I believe.
Depends on you, and it depends on us. Don't let it happen. I mean, that's pretty foreboding and pretty telling, but it's true.
I see a comment in chat. Did he just say abolish the orgasm? If I had to take a guess, I would say that is a symbolism for abolish real life, real time feelings, and everything's becoming, digital, computerized. They're taking the joy out of. I don't know. I would thought when I heard it.
I would put less emphasis or less, focus on that. But look, listen to that statement as it was meant. We played it because of the futuristic, boot on the neck of the people or the head of the people, and I think that's what we have to focus on. And it's telling, and it's this tyranny. Right now we're under this soft tyranny, in some cases a little harder tyranny, but the tyranny under the global governance is going to be severe. Look at it that way, but look
what
at
I was trying to say is taking away the real life experiences for virtual, phony, false type.
Well, everything is becoming virtual reality. I mean, Paul McGuire talks about it. We had Ted Broer talking about the holographic nature. There's certain aspects of this new world order where we're at today.
And the physical aspect. I keep seeing every once a week on Drudge or any website that deals with the technological aspect, sex bots coming soon.
Well, it's the conversions of technology that and I think folks who are listening to this program tonight who are of age that have teenagers at home who play video games, those video games are becoming more and more realistic.
Right, and take that a step further with these sex bots. Who needs a wife? Who needs a companion? Who needs, to have kids? Who needs...
You never have to leave your mom's basement, or you never have to leave your... It's really... We are substituting real life experiences for virtual reality, and this is part and parcel to what's coming with the New World Order. How we will be subjugated mentally and emotionally, or the emotional part of it too. Think of the warmth in those who are married or who are getting married. Think of the warmth of the touch of your wife or your husband. What's happening now is that warmth of the touch is now being replaced by this virtual reality, by this false sense of
and the generation that is younger than me doesn't care about that companionship or they. From what I understand and from what I can tell, how the divorce rates continues to increase. It was 50% 10 years ago, and now people aren't even getting married until they're, if they're getting married at all, they're getting married later and later and later in life. People don't see that as a benefit or something that is good in life. They see it as a hindrance because everybody's so self-centered. They want to do what they want to do. There's no room for another individual or person and their needs and wants in their life.
Sometimes we have to just step back and make an assessment of what's really going on, and this assessment that we're doing right now, although it seems off topic, I think is really at the heart of everything. How we're being subjugated, the transhumanism. The transhumanistic agenda, the implementation of the one world government, the New World Order, the fact that instead of being able to hold and trade in actual silver and gold coins in your pocket is now being traded in for the digits on the computer screen. We're seeing this move from the real to the artificial, and this will condition, especially the younger generation.
It has,
yeah. So it really, and part and parcel to that, the double standards of corporate America, is going back to what this former Congressman Wolf said. He pointed, for example, to the hypocrisy of corporate leaders. You can cite Apple CEO Tim Cook, who opposed the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. Remember that, in Indiana, in other states. This is a trend that we must identify. Now, you might not consider yourself religious. It doesn't matter. The fact that they are attacking, the powers are attacking the belief systems of conservative Christians.
And see, where I'm understanding now is it has to happen, because religion, in reality, is the problem. It's not the belief in our Lord and the true believers. It's
right.
The false spirit of religiousness and legalism, religious legalism. So when that does fall, people will either do what the Lord said. They're either going to be on fire for the Lord, or they're going to be cold or lukewarm. And separating
lukewarm
the
is
people
a dangerous place. But go ahead.
Who are on fire for the Lord from those who are lukewarm, and for those who are... I mean, how many people would still worship the Lord if all the churches in America, the buildings, were tore down tomorrow?
Hopefully all of our listeners, and I believe that to be the case. I
Absolutely.
think, however, you've got that segment of society who...
I mean, people would just put their Bible on a shelf, say, oh, that's it. No more churches. What do we do?
And remember Steve Quayle saying, I think he said this week, where Bibles will be burned, or they'll be outlawed, and I believe that's coming. I really believe.
Well, yeah.
Because
the Scripture says it.
Well, yeah, and not only that, the move by the government to classify Christians who believe in the Bible, not as an allegory, like I think what Bill O'Reilly, for example, he's a mouthpiece for the so-called mouthpiece for the so-called conservatives,
conservative Christians,
right? Saying, well, it's allegorical. Okay, then that's on the slope to eradicating the Bible, because those who believe in the inerrancy of the Bible will be considered archaic and even criminals. So,
well, we see how much the modern day churches and mega pastors have changed already the words that are in the Bible, while they still have their Bibles there with them.
That's right.
They're of no use to those people unless, there are people in those congregations who are still searching the truth. But when, I think it's in Romans 8, when you change the word of God into a lie, you nullify the actual word of the Lord. So the churches, as I said yesterday, everybody's so terrified of the Supreme Court decision. Well, we already lost the battle when our mainstream churches adopted the same-sex legislation, like the Presbyterian branch, and I don't know which other ones. Not all of them did. But those churches are void now, because they've already took the initiative upon themselves, before there was a law, to protect their tax-exempt status, I believe, to be politically correct, to conform to the world, so they can gain, their converts, but they're not converts of Christ, most of them. I pray that all of them are.
Well,
but once the church becomes more worldly, it becomes more attractive to people who love the world more than they like the word of the Lord.
And this is something we didn't plan on getting into this, but if I may just go on a tangent here, one of the subtleties of Satan, one of the subtleties of as intellectuals, all of us, as we are intellectuals, people with functioning minds, we are slowly being lied to through the revision of documents of history but one of the more and I'll use the word again, insidious. One of the more insidious things that we're seeing is the counterfeiting of the Bibles today, for example. And again, I wasn't planning on getting into this, but I've spoken about this before, but I really want to drive this home. One of the greatest method of deception is to counterfeit, and the master of counterfeit and deception, of course, is Satan. If you look in the Bible, 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 14 and 15 warns of Satan's counterfeit. Now, among his, and this is based on research now that we've done collectively, I've done individually, others have done, but really pay attention to this. How many different translations and versions of the Christian Bible are out there? There's many, right, Joe? I mean, you got the National or New International Version. You got the, how many? The King James Version, the New King James Version. Well, one of the paths that took me in my investigative studies, investigative research, was about the New King James Version Bible, and I have concerns about this.
Remember that DVD we were sent, the New World Order
Yes.
Bible?
Yes.
It got into this in great detail, the differences the changes that were made from the NIV to the New King James versus what was in the original.
Yes.
How many references to heaven or
Savior. Yeah, I'll tell you right now, real quick here. If you have a New King James Version Bible, now, folks, you can make your own minds up, okay? As rational, sane, sharp, intellectual people out there, you can make your own minds up. But I've got some questions with respect to the New King James Version of the Bible. A couple of things. The symbology that's there. If you look at the symbol that all New King James Version Bibles have, because it's published through Thomas Nelson Publishers. On the inside cover, the symbol, there's a symbol, and we know that symbols are used throughout the occult. And if you look at Harper's Encyclopedia of Mystical and Paranormal Experience on page 594, symbols are important to all esoteric teachings, for they contain secret wisdom accessible only to the initiated. So right there, that makes me think, okay, what's this symbol, Thomas Nelson Publishers? Well, they claim on the inside cover the symbol is an ancient symbol for the Trinity. And folks, if you've got a New King James Version of the Bible, look at it. It's I'm trying to think of the word here, what it is. It's triqueta. Thank you, triqueta. It's a triqueta. It's used as, well, it appears on the inside cover. The Bible, the King James Version, says that in Acts chapter 17, verse 29, it clearly forbids symbology. We ought not to think that the Godhead is like unto gold or silver or stone graven by art or man's device, okay? So why does the Aquarian Conspiracy, a New Age handbook, bear a very similar symbol as the New King James Version of the Bible? And if you look at that, a lot of New Agers freely admit it represents a series of interwoven sixes, or 666. Now, whether you believe that's the case, okay. I mean, regardless, it is a triqueta in terms of the logo. And the triqueta is used as the centerpiece for the logo of the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology, ITP, which is a New Age school that follows the Jungian psychology. Now, that's after Carl Jung, and those people who know about the psychiatrist Carl Jung, he was an occultist. One of the stated goals is to reach the recognition of divinity within. Okay, so there's something there about the symbol. But moving on, if you actually just stay away from that, and I know that we're getting close to the top of the hour here, even moving on past that, past the logo, And there are so many other examples. Books written by former Satanists, such as Blood on the Doorpost. Former Satanists, I should say. Bill and Sharon Schneblin wrote Blood on the Doorpost, documents the trio of sixes in the New King James Version symbol, and goes, they even say it's symbolic of the Antichrist, but beyond that, again, moving past that, the preface on the to the New King James Version of the Bible reads, and I'm going to quote this, reads, a special feature of this New King James Version is its conformity to the thought flow of the 1611 Bible. The new edition, which is much clearer, are so close to the traditional. So that what that says is, hey, don't worry, we're conforming to the spirit of the actual 1611 Bible version of the Bible. But among the first changes that greets the reader of the New King James Version is the removal of certain words that have meaning, and words do have meaning. Thee, thou, and ye, for example. Now, in the New King James Version, they state that thee, thou, and ye are replaced by the simple you. Because why? Well, the pronouns are no longer part of our language. But thee, thou, and ye, if you go back and look at history, they weren't part of the language during the 1611 time period either. Just read the 1611 King James Bible. There were not thee, thou, and ye in the introduction. All right, but anyway, moving on here. It's the intent of the New King James Version to make the old King James Version much clearer by updating obsolete words. Okay, well, how about the word hell? You see, the New King James Version removes the word hell 23 times. 23 times.
Do they replace it with anything? Or
yeah, they replace it with Hades and Sheol.
Okay.
Okay, now if you look up, right here, I've got a copy of Webster's New Collegiate Dictionary. Well, what's Hades? Well, Hades is the underground abode of the dead in Greek mythology.
Right. You did have the what they call Abraham's bosom, where before the Lord was resurrected, those who were dead in the Lord were separated from those who weren't. So they do have different meanings.
Yeah. So what I'm saying, so another one of these obsolete words is repent. Now, this is important too. The word repent in the New King James Version is removed 44 times. Huh. Isn't that interesting? The new term, or the term New Testament, is not in the New King James Version. Okay. The New Testament is replaced with New Covenant. Now, some people can see that as, say, well, that's marginal. No, that's really an assault on the written word. Also removed are the words damned, damnation. Condemned it's been replaced with condemned, but it's nowhere near as serious as damned. You can condemn someone but not damn them, or a person can be condemned but not damned. Romans 14 verse 22 is one example there, and I won't get into it. But there are so many absurd changes that are very subtle, very, very subtle. I'm just looking at my notes here. Again, I wasn't planning on going here, but there are so many revisions, so many changes. Let me just give you, I think, one or two more examples here. By the way, the triqueta, if you want to know what it looks like, if you're old enough to remember those, remember the 45 records that we used to have, and then you put those plastic things in the center to make it fit on the turntable. Yeah, some of you know what I'm talking about. That's kind of the version of the triqueta. Okay. So if you want to know what that looks like, if you don't have a New King James Version Bible right there. So moreover, the reason I bring this up is because we are being subtly, things are changing very subtly. For example, the New King James Version removes the word Lord 66 times. It removes the word God 51 times. It removes the word heaven 50 times. In just the New Testament alone, the New King James Version removes 2,289 words from Old King James Version. They make over 100,000 word changes. And if you by comparison,
the Queen James Bible only has 8.
So, the point is, as we now just breeze through the top of the hour, the point is this: to be lied to, it doesn't have to be the more insidious lies, or in fact the more subtle lies. So we have to be always paying attention, and today more than ever, be a lot more wary of what we're being exposed to. We think we're doing right, and we think we're on the right path. We think that we're doing, we actually have God's book in our, God's word in our hand. Wow. So look at what is taking place, and see how the word is being counterfeit. See how the truth is being molded and counterfeited. And I just want to bring that up because that, to me, is something important that I think people need to understand. But you're listening to a Friday edition, a follow-up Friday edition of the Hagmann Hagmann Report. Interestingly, we will get into. Interestingly, we got off on that tangent, but we will be getting into some very important aspects of what will be affecting you, all of us, with respect to the Internet, as well as other issues related to the New World Order on the other side. Stay with us.
Gentlemen, to hour number 2 of this Friday, May 15th, 2015. We have a bunch of news we're going to get into this hour. And we are going to switch gears. We were going to talk about the Internet news first, but we're going to talk economic news, because I just came across something right before the show that was very interesting. China's yuan may draw $1 trillion on getting IMF reserve status. At least $1 trillion of global reserves will switch to Chinese assets if the IMF endorses the yuan as a reserve currency this year, according to the Standard Chartered PLC and AXA investment managers. People's Bank of China officials have called for the IMF to include the yuan in its reserve basket, which consists of the dollar, the euro, pound, and yen. In a review later this year, an inclusion could spur as much as 6.2 trillion yuan of net purchases of China's offshore bonds by the end of 2020, according to estimates. Managers say about 10% of the 11.6 trillion in global reserves will flow into yuan assets. It didn't give a time frame. What is significant is the seal of approval by the IMF that the yuan has internationalized as reserve currency. Aidan Yao said, the senior emerging market economist at AXA Investment, said in a briefing in Hong Kong Thursday. It could trigger reallocation of global reserve portfolios.
Now, what does that all mean? Because to me, that's a whole bunch of words, but
the dollar has 41.9% in the SDR basket currencies. The euro has 37.4%, this according to the IMF. Pound 11.3%, the yen 9.4%. The yuan can get a potential weighing of about 13%, according to an estimate from the Bank of Merrill Lynch in March. HSBC Holdings PLC said in April, note that the yuan share could be as high as 14%, reflecting China's importance in global exports. SDR inclusions in 2015 would likely have a significant market impact, driving immediate sharp increase in global diversification into renminbi assets.
Renminbi. Yeah. Yeah.
Renminbi.
Renminbi.
But it says the renminbi broadly meets SDR criteria. Standard Chartered analysts, including Beckley Lau and Eddie Cheng, wrote in a research paper Friday, even if the decision is to include the renminbi, it's deferred. We see a higher degree of certainty for inclusion in 2020 or possibly earlier via the interim review. But what this means is less room for the dollar in that basket of
SDR reserve currencies.
Okay.
And therefore, it would be it would not hold as much value as it does now. They're part of the market share. A lot of the U.S. dollar's wealth is not backed on gold, if that was taken away. As you say, it's backed on the fact that it's a petrodollar.
Right.
But as the countries are moving away from the dollar, the IMF is also continuing to expand their basket currencies for the world reserve currency status. And, when we get to a point where somebody is equal with us or higher than us, then there goes our cheap gas prices, our food. And I don't know if this is kind of not off topic, but more speculative. From what I heard about what could happen with this Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement once it's passed, is it opens up a market for farmers in the United States to sell globally. Therefore, food prices will... Remember when Nathan talked about his dream he had and he's standing in the supermarket?
Yes.
A pound of hamburger I saw, they said it would be like $20.
Right.
Milk would be like $10, $15. Kind of the same exact things he was saying came up in what some economists were speculating about on different forums, saying that this once the global market, once the TPP goes through, the ability for U.S. farmers is not just to sell to people in the U.S., they have a world market now.
Well, here's what all of this brings me back to, and I think you and I spoke about this earlier. And folks, I would really recommend not blowing this off, okay? Because I do believe world leaders, members of the IMF, leaders of, who's the IMF chief right now?
Lagarde?
Christine Lagarde. If you go back to January 2014, and people laugh this off, but as we said earlier, words do mean things. Remember that speech that she delivered at the National Press Club in January 2014. If her words didn't mean anything, I mean, what's going on here? If you look at the references that she made, and I'm going to turn it back over to you, Joe, but there was just a bizarre speech by IMF leader Christine Lagarde in January 2014 at the National Press Club. And you can look this up. You can find it on the internet. But 1 minute, 22 seconds into her speech, and the speech seemed to center on occult numerology. 1 minute, 22 seconds. Now I'm going to test your numerology skills by asking you to think about the magic 7. Okay? 134. Most of you will know that 7 is quite a number. 224. 2014. You drop the 0. 14. 2 times 7. Now, these are her words, not mine, not ours. 420 or 408. It will mark the 70th anniversary. 70th anniversary, drop the 0, 7 of the Bretton Woods Conference that actually gave birth to the IMF. Now she's talking there about the birth of the IMF, the 70th anniversary, or reducing that number down to 7. 438, it will also mark the 7th anniversary of the financial market jitters. 508, and those 7 miserable years, weak and fragile. 514, we have 7 strong years. And it goes on and on and on about 7. Why? Why did Lagarde bring up the numerology? Was that some sort of a message just for those initiates in the know? Is numerology, in this case, real? Is it nonsense? I don't believe it's nonsense at all.
Well, numerology is, the Lord has purpose for numbers.
Right. And so does Satan.
Yeah. And, we see numbers in 666 in the Bible. Number 7, the 7 days in a week. Jubilees every 50 years. There's all these cycles, all these numbers. And there are things to this. We see the letters and numbers are just symbols that communicate things. And I've been doing some studies on languages and the origins of languages, and it originated from symbols, like a football team. You see a logo of a football team, you don't need to see the word spelled out because that logo represents a word in your mind already.
Right. Yes.
So, I mean, there is uses that we don't even comprehend most of the time when these things are being said and done, and purposes we are unaware of.
Well, and look, not to stray too far, but Jonathan Cahn, the Harbinger, and the mystery of the Shemitah, and now, have you noticed the two heifers born with the sevens?
I've never
on their
understood
head.
that.
Yeah.
The red heifers.
Well, the perfect heifers, but born on the same day with the number 7.
Is there a biblical verse for that, or an application in the Bible to this?
I'm hesitant to even get into that, only because of the tangents we can go down. But the fact is, Christine Lagarde, the managing director of the IMF, in that unusual, very cryptic speech before the National Press Club, and some people might consider this old news, but a lot of times, folks, the speeches like this are meant for the initiates and meant for a future date, a future time, and it's strange. And I would urge people not to blow this off. I mean, you could also take this. You could use similar numerology when we talk about the downed Malaysian flight. And people have short memories. Really, we all do, because we're getting hit left and right by headlines. But the downed Malaysian flight, the aircraft, a Boeing 777. It was Flight 17. It crashed on 7/17/14. Of course, 14 is 2 sevens. The maiden flight crashed, of the crash aircraft, occurred on 7/17/97. Okay, and if you look, that was the first time. Let me clarify that. The aircraft that crashed, the Malaysian flight, was first put into service on 7/17/97. And if you do numerology there, 7/17/97, if you 97 is 9 plus 7, that's equal to 16. You reduce it further to 1 plus 6 is equal to 7. And it's interesting because the aircraft had 17 years in service. Now, you might think, well, we can get numbers from anything. Yeah, we can, but to this extent, I think we have to look for patterns if we want to understand the playbook of the enemies. Occult gematria. So, I guess the reason I mention this is because all of this, when you combine this together, you can see where we're being taken, I believe. And we're being taken down this road of the occult. And whether we believe this or not, it doesn't really matter. We don't have to believe what they believe. But if they're the ones in power and they believe in numerology, and numbers mean things, and there's hidden messages, and the way and if you look at images, and I've been doing this a lot lately, look at the images of leaders, their hand positioning, and it's interesting because I do believe there are messages being sent to those who know what to look for. And we can glean from this some level of knowledge, I believe, that yes, there is communication in the open that only the initiated understand. Yeah, plans are being made right in the open, right in front of us, and they're laughing at us because, we don't know. I mean, we're not informed. We don't have their playbook, at least not all of it. So, anyway, I would watch these various messages, and it's easy for people to say, "Wow, you're really getting off on some whacked out tangent." But when you start talking about the complexity of the financial system and the push toward this one world economic system. It's all being reduced to numbers anyway, right? Numbers on a computer screen. There is stuff here. There is fertile ground for investigation and research, and we welcome all of your inputs. Many people have sent, and we want to thank every one of you for sending your takes on your investigative research on this kind of thing. And I think it's important because we're trying to connect some dots, seemingly disparate dots. And it's our survival in a way. I mean, well, obviously our survival, we know where it comes from, and we know, but we can also mitigate our exposure to what's coming by understanding the playbook. And that's what we're trying to do. So I thought I'd go off on a tangent as we see the yuan now emerging. And Steve Quayle said something interesting about China and gold when Ross Powell was on. The talking points that we had, not exactly we didn't cover them all, but the Chinese yuan SDR update. The IMF has stated that the yuan is fairly valued. The Britain openly stated that they supported the yuan inclusion in the SDR. China is continuing to push it. End of May for recommendation, and November for final vote to be effective January of 2016. In other words, meaning that we're looking at a pretty rapid transition, I believe, into a removal of the U.S. dollar as a reserve currency.
Oh, they are. And just to go a month back from the same publication, Bloomberg.com, where we just talked about and read this article about the yuan, this talks about what will happen. It says quantitative easing is helping Europe achieve its economic targets, but it's also undermining the long-term value of the euro as a global reserve currency. Central banks cut their euro holdings by the most on record last year in anticipation of losses tied to unprecedented stimulus. Now the euro accounts just for 22% of the worldwide reserves, down from 28% a year ago, while the dollar and yen climbed. As a reserve currency, the euro is falling apart. As long as you have full quantitative easing, there is no need to invest. The problem for the moment is we don't see a floor for the currency. Money is flowing out. Global reserve managers may be thinking the euro is going to sink economically. If this continues this way, they may be expecting Japan's economic growth to continue as a result of that. But here's what they say happens. Most of the fall in the euro shares, rather than simply reflecting the declines in the exchange rate, they are adding to the declines, the euro weakening. So as we continue the printing presses here, backed by nothing, printing paper that is worthless, calling it something of value, China has been buying up gold. They, through our trade agreements, have been able to take over the manufacturing and are now the manufacturing capital of the world, where we were since the Industrial Revolution up until NAFTA was implemented. And they have been able to and will continue to push a gold-backed currency, which is much more attractive to financial people when considering a reserve currency, because their currency has the collateral to back it up. It's like, would you give a loan to somebody who had, would you give a $100,000 loan to somebody who didn't even have a car or even a tire to back up their loan? Or would you go with somebody who had, a couple $100,000 worth of supplies that they could sell if they needed to have the money? Well, that's a no-brainer, right? And this is the same kind of what we're seeing here. And not only that, but not only are we not correcting our ways, we're continuing to diminish the value of our currency through the continuation of these programs.
Right.
Now you see the negative interest rates and deposit fees and banks looking for measures, when you can't even go to the bank and take out a couple $1,000s without getting, tackled, SWAT teamed and taken by the IRS, there's a problem.
Yeah, two stories or two real life accounts that are not connected, but I think it's important for people to hear, exclusive to the Hagmann Hagmann Report. I'll go with the more relevant one here as a segue. I had the occasion once again to speak with an individual who I've become friends with at the bank, at our local bank, and I had a conversation about withdrawals, cash withdrawals, and this individual knows my feelings, and this person knows pretty much what's going on. And I was told, and folks, take this for what it's worth. I mean, this is not secondhand or friend of a friend. This is coming directly from a bank manager who said that they've been instructed by the federal government, and we're talking within the last, I'll say 60 days. I'm not exactly certain of the time, but it was definitely within the last 60 days, to number one, discourage people from taking cash out of the bank. The tellers, for example,
they don't even keep enough money in the bank for people to take it out. So they used to, and say they didn't have it. Now they don't even keep it there, so they can't even lie about it.
Well, right.
I mean, just as anybody who has, we'll say, $50,000 in the bank, which is not Obama.
Yeah.
Go in just as a practice thing. You don't want to take out $25,000 or whatever, but just go in your bank without calling ahead and ask for that $25,000 just to see what they say. You're not going to get it anyway, but just go ask.
Well, right, and this branch manager said that.
And if you can get it, take it.
Yeah, well, if you're fortunate enough to have that kind of liquidity, but the branch manager said that they were instructed by the federal government to actively discourage people from taking large cash withdrawals, and this happened within the last 60 days, and to ask questions, ask why are you taking the money out, and for example, if it's for a vacation, let's say you're traveling to Florida or you're traveling to Las Vegas or you name the place, they are to encourage the customer to use plastic, to use the debit card or credit card, whatever, the ATM card, as the method of purchase, or to in place of cash. And this is the important part, if the customer is insistent, or if the customer, if it's not let's say it's not you're not traveling, if the customer is making more than one or two cash withdrawals per week, they are to report them via the SARS, the Suspicious Activity Reporting, to the federal government. Now, that does not mean that you'll ever know that you're being reported, but this confirms what we've been saying. And this, over the last 60 days, this has become much more aggressive. This directly stated directly to me by the manager of a relatively large bank throughout the United States. So,
this is why you get kicked out of banks? So
yes, this is the exact reason why I'm not allowed in some banks. Or
they have pictures of them on. Seriously.
No, they don't have pictures, but
like when you go into grocery stores sometimes, especially in less in poorer neighborhoods. The one I used to live by, they had a whole wall of pictures. This guy stole a loaf of bread. He's in the banks.
Yeah.
And it didn't even say he stole anything. It just said no.
No, it's yeah. Joe's being funny, but seriously, in a couple of banks I'm not welcome because of my righteous anger toward the system itself and making.
Well, that's where it starts.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I just want people to be aware. that you probably will be placed on there will be a report filed against you. Not that you'll ever know it, but data is being collected on your transactions, and it doesn't have to be $5,000. It could be as little as $2,000. The information I got was $2,000, which is consistent with what Ross Powell and Steve Quayle said on Wednesday. So just keep that in mind. Not that you're trying to hide anything, but at what point?
It
doesn't matter. I mean,
if you are trying to hide anything, the burden, if you're doing something wrong, they have to prove you're guilty. You're innocent until proven guilty, but not in our system anymore.
That's right.
Not in our, and it's not even just in the economic sector. It's all across the board. I want to get back to the Denmark piece real quick, but there was an article today about the people being sick and tired of these checkpoints inside the U.S. borders. This from Watertown Daily News. North County residents have mixed views on U.S. Border Patrol checkpoints. North Country residents have strong opinions and mixed views about the value of traffic checkpoints routinely set up by U.S. Customs and Border Patrol agents assigned to monitor the American side of the U.S.-Canadian border.
Hold on a second. Let me just clarify this. Joe, you and I spent a lot of time up in Watertown. Watertown, just to give people an idea.
Fort Bragg? Or Fort Drum?
Fort Drum. That's right. It's where Fort Drum is. It's
an hour north of Syracuse.
And it's right. It's near the Canadian border. It's a town that, you go through, you take, what is it?
81.
81? Okay, you take 81 from Syracuse up. Before you hit Canada, you run into Watertown. And Watertown is this city, if you will. It's a small city. It's kind of spread out. But it's kind of like a city in the middle of the country.
It's a city that guards a military base or hides a military base.
And Joe, you and I spent many hours up in Watertown, up in that area, and this is where this is coming from. I just want people to know that we've been there and we've worked cases.
I wouldn't brag about that.
Well, Ogdensburg. We worked cases in Ogdensburg, and that's north of Watertown, just to give you an idea of the area. But this is important because, this backdrop is important because this is happening not just there. And if it can happen there, and it is happening there, it will happen where you live.
Remember the 100-mile Constitution-free zones? Anyone within 100 miles of a border is in a Constitution-free zone.
Yes.
We see this mostly in the southern border. There's lots of YouTube videos on how people get through the checkpoints by politely refusing to answer any questions except asking the question, "Can I go?" But that depends on what kind of day the cops are having.
But listen to what Joe's going to say, because listen to these responses by the Watertown, Ogdensburg residents. This is important.
And think about this. Now, they're still keeping these checkpoints up in high volumes, even though they're allowing the illegal immigrants to come in. So it is ridiculous. It makes no sense whatsoever. If the illegal immigrants are no longer illegal, what are the checkpoints for? And secondly, why? It's one thing if they're 10, 20 miles away from the border crossing on the same road, but they're not. They're in the country on roads that are not border roads in the U.S. But they're going to say that, based on a random interview, several say they believe border checkpoints are necessary to keep illicit drugs, illegal immigrants, and other unlawful activities out of the country. All things the government brings in openly. But, however, many are also concerned that too many law enforcement officials, including the Border Patrol agents, unlawfully stretch their authority by using aggressive tactics when interrogating law-abiding citizens traveling in their own country. Last week, Jessica Cookie, 21 of Ogdensburg, was pulled over at a border checkpoint in Waddington by Border Patrol agents who wanted to search her car's trunk during an altercation that followed. Miss Cookie was allegedly subdued with a stun gun. The incident, which was captured on cell phone taken by Miss Cookie,
we'll call her Cook. We'll call her Cook.
I'm sorry, that is Cook. Has prompted a spirited debate on social media sites. Cook, SUNY Canton criminal justice major who graduated Saturday, claims she was wrongfully assaulted and threatened to file a lawsuit.
She got paid.
She would win. Yeah. Several people say they believe both parties deserve some blame for their altercations. Cook for provoking agents with an uncooperative attitude, and the agents for using excessive force to restrain her. Well, just in my own comments, she has every right to have an uncooperative attitude. She was minding her own business. The Constitution, if we're going to go by that, that's allegedly the law of the land, says you shall be free to travel about.
What happened to the Bill of Rights?
Well, that's just the thing. They're irrelevant.
Exactly.
And people don't understand that. They're sitting here worrying about fighting for the Constitution, not realizing that that's like, But
the sampling of the opinion of the area residents and the people visiting should tell you everything you need to know.
Yeah. And here goes with the sampling. William Hill Edwards said he was driven through checkpoints on several occasions, never had a problem. Usually agents ask drivers where they're from and where they're going. And my answer would be none of your business. Occasionally they ask drivers to pull over for further questioning or inspect their vehicle. I am for Border Patrol checkpoints. Look at the drugs seized weekly by these that would otherwise go right into the streets. Hill said in an email, if you have nothing to hide, why be a jerk? Just cooperate. Well, that's the
why be a jerk?
Will,
just cooperate.
Yeah. What do you have to hide?
Right.
Get your chip. Are you terrorists? All right. Heather Wells, 29, of Ogdensburg, said her and her husband pass through checkpoints occasionally on Route 37, and we've been on that road many times, when they are heading to St. Regis Mohawk Reservation to purchase cigarettes. I think we're close to a border, so we should have checkpoints, Wells said. If you don't give them a reason to stop you, they won't. That's garbage.
Yeah,
they don't have a reason in the first place.
Yeah, and just imagine an open road like 37 it's a very rural area, going out of Watertown toward Ogdensburg, and 81, which is the interstate, but it's in the middle of nowhere.
Now, see, I was in a good mood. I didn't read this far down into the sampling.
Oh, you got to read it.
I assumed the people were going to be
outraged.
Yeah.
No.
How about you read the next?
Yeah. Well, okay. In Watertown, Antonio, let's see, Gigliotti said he does not consider road checkpoints set up by the Border Patrol to be any cause for concern. They don't bother me. Now, he said that he traveled through checkpoints before without an issue. He said that, and here's the problem. And of course, everyone listening, you know, and this is almost like preaching to the choir, but this gives you an idea of the mental attitude. He said that since he doesn't have anything to hide, he never feels worried when he passes through one. Well, of course not. But see, just because you don't have anything to hide, that does not or should not give you license. I mean, hey, you go ahead, put me under surveillance. I don't have anything to hide. Go ahead and look into my computer. I don't have anything to hide. Oh, my goodness.
I don't care if I had nothing to hide. Don't even look at my computer, let alone look what's inside of it.
Well,
get a warrant.
Tanya Fulmore from Watertown agreed. She said that road checkpoints are necessary to keep our border secure. Are you kidding me?
Wait. They're necessary to keep our border secure.
Right.
We're endangering the security of our border because the illegal immigrants have been coming in and out. Yeah, there's cartel and drug violence, but they're being, ushered in, welcomed in, handed driver's license when they get here.
Right.
Food stamp cards, cell phones. So that's a straw man argument because apparently immigration isn't illegal anymore.
No.
So is it the drugs? I mean, that makes sense, but not in the U.S.-Canada border, really. And if they do that, that should be done with the customs at the border.
Well, yes. And
I mean, you can have surveillance. You can... People think that when you have a show of force or a show of authority, it means more than...
And I know Alex Jones. We know Alex Jones covers this a lot and talks about this a lot. We understand that, and we folks, you'll see the videos of people going through checkpoints, and here's what I'd say about that. Okay, if and I've seen some pretty rough videos out there. Okay, it's my belief that if you are stopped at a checkpoint within the United States, I would really highly recommend you, number one, be respectful, but knowledgeable of your rights.
You can, respectful,
don't be a jerk.
Of course. Yeah.
Okay.
But being a jerk is considered not cooperating at the same time.
No. What I'm talking,
you can just say politely, officer, you have no legal authority to do this. I'm not answering any of your questions. Don't touch my stuff unless you have a warrant. Goodbye.
Right. Don't be vulgar. Don't be, be very assertive, but don't be a jerk about it. And ladies and gentlemen, I know you've seen videos out there that people make these videos and they make them for the
benefit of people that understand how to assert their rights.
But they make them for in some cases they make them for the what would you call it?
The shock value.
The shock value. Thank you.
How far can I push it?
Yeah, let's not do that. Let's stand up for our rights.
The best example I saw was, can I go?
Very
no matter
simple.
what was asked. Can
That's
I go, officers? Being put, sir, can I go?
Am I being detained?
Yes.
And can I go? That's right.
You have, let's say we're living in a constitutional republic, which we were. It was at some point, but it's so convoluted now. Who knows what is really the law and what's valid? But either way, cops still have protocols, procedures, and standards they have to work under, and they can't operate if they're circumventing that. Things get thrown out of court. Look at Miranda, for instance. Something as simple as being read your rights or not being read your rights was given people who had confessed to crimes a walk.
But how many?
So people will the judges will stick up for.
But how many people
when
know,
the officers don't follow their procedures? But when the people who are living today understand we live under a constitution, but have no idea what's in the Constitution.
There you go.
They don't even understand. Well, it doesn't matter. We have nothing to hide. Well, it doesn't. It has nothing to do with having something to hide. It has everything to do with your right to travel freely, unmolested, unless there is probable cause to stop you.
Now,
when you're stopped, you're actually arrested.
Well, let me ask this question. And this question is for people in chat. And if you're listening to this by archive, feel free to fill out the contact us form at hagmanandhagmann.com, and I'd welcome your suggestions. We of course have logos for our Watchmen Unleashed, for our radio show, and bumper stickers that we freely give out. We are in the process of getting more now. And but let me ask this question: would it be beneficial, do you think, to the listeners, if we had printed up citizens' handbooks? I know Alex Jones had done this, but freely give them out to our listeners who would want them.
If people ask for them, maybe, but I think our listeners are smart enough to understand, to know where to go to look to see what their rights are. But
sometimes you could hand it to the police officer and say, look, here's a copy of our rights as we
kindergartners. I think for regular people who say go along with this, we should have a thing where you pin it on their shirt or put it in their pocket, like the cards, where they can look and see and say, okay, I'm being stopped. Did I break a law?
Well,
no.
Okay. I don't want to make this sound like a...
No, I'm being serious. Because people don't... I'm not saying treat them like babies, but we have to start at a ground level because people aren't even operating with the intelligence of what actually the laws and... they're making it about what you had to hide. I think it's good because it keeps this off the street. They're talking about keeping something off the streets that's not even illegal that our government... they let the drugs in too, but... where have people been on the immigration issue? You have hundreds of thousands of people coming in, month by month by month, and it's increasing and increasing. You have judges letting go thousands, weekly here and there because things are overcrowded. People are giving. There is no such thing as illegal immigration anymore.
That's true.
It's a straw man and a moot argument.
Speaking of judges, here we are in the North Country of New York, Watertown. I believe that's where I when you say judges, we were in a court hearing. I think that's where I threw the TV toward the judge, after he. I mean, it was a fit of righteous anger. I actually, when he was throwing me out of his courtroom, I threw the TV in his direction.
Oh, that was crazy.
Yeah, and
he was testifying, and we. The whole thing was this guy was on workers' compensation. He also trapped animals, and my dad presented himself as a writer for CFP, Canada Free Press, which he was.
It is.
Said he was doing a story on animal trapping, and well, the guy was not smart enough. He was stupid enough to let us, while being on workers' compensation, to let us videotape and follow him around as he's setting these traps and doing this and that. We go to court,
making money at it too.
The judge said, "You're a liar," and he said, "No, I'm not. I didn't lie. You weren't misrepresenting yourself." And you made the point, police, lie in interrogations, but that's even further than what you did.
It's called a pretext,
right? And the guy said, "I don't care. Get out of my courtroom."
Yeah, the judge. And
my dad at the time, I don't know if your back was worse, but I remember I heard a lot back then. You took that TV up and hurled it, and the attorney came out and kind of was like, settle down. Yeah. This judge was like 180 years old. I thought he was going to jail.
Yeah,
I'm just sitting in the court astonished. It was like one of the first times I was in, not the first, but one of the first few times I actually was in the court listening to the testimony.
I got to say, I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure why I wasn't arrested, but we certainly didn't hang out in the county for very long after that.
And that was your TV too.
Yeah, which had the actual documentation on it was so long ago it was videotape. Okay, so that tells you how long ago it was.
And to finish that story out, in New York State, basically, if you're on workers' comp and you get caught defrauding the state,
you go to jail.
No, I've never seen that.
Oh well, no. You seriously, you do. If you can prove, if they can prove financial benefit, deriving financial benefit.
But isn't the whole point? I used to think the whole point, if you're caught defrauding, saying you're hurt and you're not really hurt, financial benefit or otherwise, you're still collecting money from those employers without working.
Right.
That's fraud in my mind. Of all the times we were in New York, all the people would go to the doctors in wheelchairs, get up when they're done and go and put on a roof. Never went to jail.
There was one case where I actually saw a guy that we were working in that capacity, or he was a chimney sweep actually, and he actually was taken in handcuffs off the property. But
that probably set a precedent. I never understood it, why the insurance companies would pay the people who are out on work and then pay us on top of it when it didn't matter anyway.
Well, it was to mitigate their exposure, their losses. But yeah, just getting back to the judge, it was interesting because righteous anger does have a place, and I think that was probably protected by the.
Well, in the end of this article, federal law enforcement has a job to do, and sometimes even following procedures.
Yep.
Sometimes innocent people do get injured. Well, let me tell you something. Those procedures are illegal.
Right. Right.
This is a commenter, Tim Drew, an Arizona resident. So he went from one southern border checkpoints to northern border checkpoints, and says that but there are procedures and things of that nature to fix those kinds of things. I mean, it's regrettable, but when you enforce procedures in light of recent security situations, innocent people do sometimes get hurt, and it's unfortunate, but I don't find it to be wrong. So he doesn't find it to be wrong that innocent people get hurt sometimes, because in his mind, it's justified by the greater good. Welcome to communism, socialism, Nazism.
Yeah. And wasn't it the gentleman Michael Mayer from the Czech Republic who said that the freedoms they enjoy there in the Czech Republic? This is the third hour of Steve Coyle and Ross Powell when Michael from the Czech Republic called in. The freedom there is much greater than here in the United States, and you can see the scale, the pendulum going the other way here in the United States, where we are losing our freedoms. And this is part of it. The attitude is part of it. So back to my question, how do you change the attitude of people like, well, let's see, I'm looking at this article here, Tim Drew, okay. I don't want to get the names wrong, but the people who think, hey, if I've got nothing to hide, it's okay.
Well, you can go stand on the left side. We'll stand on the right side, and we'll see who common sense takes them longer in this decaying nation. Those would be the first people to walk into the FEMA camps.
And getting back to what you said about the Romans 13, the Butch Paw article, taking the pastor to task over saying, well, you've got to follow the civil authority based on Romans 13. This is what this is all about. I mean, take a few steps back, everyone. Take a few steps back and take a look at what's going on, and compare it to what happened in Germany. And I know some of this sounds like, oh, this is the same old stuff. But we have to really pound this home, because the closer we get to that very moment when we will be forced to choose, to me, will be that it's going to depend on the numbers. It's going to depend on the people who will say, no, we're not going to do this. And this is the same way with flying in the TSA. You're not going to touch me. You're not going to nuke me. We have to make the changes. We have to get everything changed. We have to do this, even if you believe it's a lost cause. Because remember remember what's been said by Pastor David Langford, by Dave Daubenmire, by Greg Jackson. Even if it's a lost cause, you still have to stand in the gap. You have to stand up for what is right. Because what's the alternative? Go along to get along and say, okay, well, I'm just going to do this. No, we can't. And if you can't speak for yourself, if you're infirmed or elderly or otherwise impaired, then we need, I believe, it's our job to speak for you, that on your behalf, on your behalf, to help you. That's what I believe. And we're all in this together. We're all in this mess together, this soup of craziness together. Are we not? Oh, man. I tell you what, we need to take a break, Joe. We do. We're up against it here. We have to readjust the program clock to get back on time here. Yeah. Folks, I don't know. I just, I just look at this, and I know that you feel the same way I feel, or at least pretty much. You feel like time is short, time is running out. Time is what good can we possibly do? Please don't lose that faith. Don't lose faith in being able to change things, because God does work miracles. And we can't put God in a box, and we certainly can't presuppose God's actions.
And one thing I've learned is that a defeatist attitude is definitely not the way to go.
That's
I used
right.
to think, well, what's the point?
Yeah, and it's easy to think
I understood the biblical and prophetic aspect, and the Lord's working had to be fulfilled. But as far as this country, this road we're on, in my mind, I see right where it's going. We know right where it's going. But at the same time, there are, as the boat's sinking and people are getting in lifeboats, and that's salvation in Jesus, we have to help them get in.
Right.
So we can't, greet them with, glad you're in the boat, you're going to die. No. But you know what I mean, the attitude that we are helpless, because we're not. We're told to occupy till the Lord returns. We're told to preach His gospel across as many people who will listen. And these are the things that we have to do, whether it's sunny or snowing, or whether, it's a country of unrest, or like it is now, a country of unrest with laws. We have a job to do, no matter if society's functioning or not.
Right. Oh, and I know this is kind of going back a little ways, and I know that you mentioned this, Joe, but I would urge people, those people who are still not convinced, who still think that we're hyping news stories up about the war on cash. I know, Joe, you mentioned this. The IRS seized $107,000.
Yeah, we talked about this off air.
Yeah.
$107,000 from a store owner of LMB stores. He owned a couple stores, and he is in a cash business and making cash deposits. Civil asset forfeiture. The IRS came in, seized his $107,000, the entirety of his bank account. Never charged him with the crime, kept the money.
Well, yeah, Lyndon McClellan's a guy. He's been in the business of country stores, the type of stores where, the employees know the customers' names, And his parents owned a general store in Grill. McClellan began helping out there when he was 9. Then 14 years ago, McClellan decided to try his hand at the family business himself. So he purchased his own store in the heart of the Bible Belt, L&M Convenience Mart. And, of course, you know how that is, right? You collect a lot of money at the cash register.
No wonder Obama keeps his money under the mattress.
Well, the bottom line is this. He was making cash, or he's making deposits at his bank in cash. Well, what?
Nope. It's illegal.
Yeah. Last July, he received a call from one of his employees saying, "Hey, you better get over here to your store." He got there, and there were more than a dozen agents that had flooded, federal agents who had flooded into his business.
Mind you, over 1,000 of these agents have never paid taxes on their own and are supposed to be fired for that, yet they're still working.
Right. Well, here goes the store owner, McClellan. He bounces into the store, and he met 2 federal agents dressed in suits who said, "Hey, I got to talk to you in private." These 2 agents did. So McClellan led the agents to the stock room, where they asked him if he knew of the term structuring. He said, "Huh? What? What's structuring? What are you talking about?" Well, the federal agents then showed McClellan paperwork that included deposits to the store account. The statements showed 2 deposits made within a 24-hour period totaling, you ready for this, $11,400. Now, this is for a business, a thriving business in North Carolina. So the statements, they said, indicated that he had a history of consistent cash deposits of less than $10,000, which is illegal. In other words, if you let's say you try to avoid the reporting requirements, you make $9,999 deposits, thinking you're way cool, right? Well, anyway, bottom line is they took all of the money in his bank account, which is $107,702.66. And he said, "Are you telling me you took my money?" He didn't understand what was going on. Imagine that. He was gobstruck for 10 minutes, man. He was saying, "What are you guys doing?" They took all of his money out of the bank. And law enforcement, after the agents left the store, he drove to the bank. The agents had been there hours earlier. They emptied his bank account. They walked out of the bank with a cashier's check. And
but the bank had his money to give away.
Though we didn't know it at the time, McClellan was committed structuring violations when making cash deposits of less than $10,000. I mean, folks, we're screwed, basically.
Well, what about the government?
Okay.
I mean, the government receives, the IRS, for example, tax time. How much money did they receive in individual payments from people?
But I had a kind of a curt email to me when we were talking about the studio, the run-up to getting the studio, and I was saying that, you have, when you apply for a commercial mortgage, and I feel sorry for the people who are applying for home loans. When you apply for a mortgage, for example, you take your bank account statements in, and all of a sudden they start asking you questions. Well, what is this $892 deposit for? Excuse me? Yeah, back in January 2014, you deposited $892 into your bank. What was it for? How in the world do I know? I mean, it was a deposit. It was during the normal course of business. But see, this is, folks, do not underestimate what's going on here.
And this is why the cashless aspect is so important.
Exactly.
It's not just that they think there's a danger or think there's something going on. They're creating the problem, and then they're implementing steps to make it worse in order to bring in the solution that will make it all better.
Exactly. And really,
how long until somebody's paychecks?
Well, that's why it began. Didn't it begin with direct deposits, the convenience of direct deposits for your paychecks and your IRS tax refunds? It's all not. I mean, it's being sold to you as a matter of convenience, but in the end, it's a matter of control, and it allows the government to know where the money came from. So and during the course of us, being able to acquire this studio, I had really had some cross words with the mortgage lender, saying, well, I answered one question. Where did this money come from? I said that was from our meth proceeds, the proceeds from our meth lab.
You should have said proceeds from selling weapons to ISIS.
Yeah, well. It's interesting they didn't take that too kindly to that answer, but you just get so frustrated, and it's enough to really, make you want to just kick the wall, and I think I might have a few times.
I'd say just getting kicked out of the banks is showing a lot of restraint, more than I would.
Yeah, well, folks, we're up against it. Here we did. We already passed the top of the hour, but we're going to be right back. You can talk about current events.
Step back and
yeah, just kind of, yeah. But let's take this opportunity in this relative quiet, and let's get prepared for what's coming. Our partners in what we do here in the radio, American Survival Wholesale. It's a veteran-owned, Christian-owned company. That you need to be prepared. Don't fall victim to the mentality out there, the toxic mentality that God will provide, but you don't have to lift a finger. Okay?
Yeah, just because you're preparing doesn't mean it's for you either.
That's right. I would much rather have it and not need it than not need it, or than not have it and need it. Yeah. Thank you for bailing me out on that. But American Survival Wholesale, we've done a lot of research with companies, and any sponsor, any partner that we have, anything that appears on our website, let me explain that we do a lot of research, because we do not want to associate ourselves with people or with products that are not up to standard.
And I have a story to tell.
Go ahead.
I had a gardener / landscaper at my house yesterday, and we were talking, and I was showing where I'm planning on building the garden at my new place, and I have a thing of the non-GMO heirloom seeds for $49.90 or $49 on American Survival Wholesale, $200 value. And I was talking with the guy, and I opened the package of seeds, and they're all individually packaged and labeled inside. And the guy was astounded, and he asked, how much you get this for? And he said, this is amazing. He doesn't know American Survival Wholesale. Didn't even come up what we do and why I had it, but he just wanted to know where I got these seeds from. And when I told him the price and everything, he was shocked.
Well, and it comes in a small box. Seeds are not that big, obviously, but very nicely packed, very nicely labeled. But these non-GMO hybrid seeds, these non-GMO seeds, folks,
at least 1 acre, 30 different varieties.
Yeah. Yep.
Just fantastic. Everything you need. Tomatoes, fruits. They have watermelons. They have the tomatoes. They have cantaloupe. They have all kinds of stuff. And many different varieties of each one. Also,
that's right.
I think there was 4 different varieties of tomatoes, 5 different varieties of lettuce. They have kale. They have all. Just everything. All-encompassing garden. Yeah.
And you know what? If the billionaire globalist elite are putting aside seeds, then I think it's a good idea. Not because they're doing it, but it.
In the Food Safety Modernization Act, they outlawed the trade, sale of certain people from trading and buying and transferring seeds.
Exactly. And we need to see, we need to prepare for what's coming, and we need to not just prepare for what's coming, but stay ahead of this legislation, the things that will affect the way we do business, the way we do commerce. And I think that American Survival Wholesale has done their homework. I know they have, and I know they're staying a step ahead of everyone else. And how soon before we can't get non-GMO seeds? I mean, think about that. And folks, please, think about not just yourselves, but your family, your friends, your neighbors. Because when crises, plural, hit, it's going to affect everyone. And if you can help another person by having that extra pack, that extra can of food, whatever it might be, you can use it for barter. But expect rough times. I don't know if it's going to be next month, next year, 5 years. It's coming. The shelf life of the seeds and the foods will far outlive your
25-year shelf life.
Yeah. So, and you know what? Since we're talking about this, we can forego the intro. Folks, you know you're listening to the Hagmann Hagmann Report. It's Friday. It's the 15th day of May, 2015. The preparation is really an important part of it. Go to AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com and stock up on what you can. Do so now while it's relatively quiet, because we do... we're back into the show now. We just discarded the opening bumper, and we're back into the show. I would just want to share something. I think it's important. We got a call, Joe. You got this phone call today. The thing I did not tell you today, this morning, I received some information. Well, I'll just flat out tell you from my niece in Cleveland, Ohio. Okay, here's the situation. My wife's niece, actually, to be accurate.
You got the card right here.
Okay, I'm gonna tell my story, and then you tell your bit of information, my information, and your information.
Okay, separate.
Okay, this is separate, but I was waiting for a second confirmation on this. Ladies and gentlemen, please pay attention to what we're about to tell you, because this information has not gone out over the air.
And this has been obviously now confirmed. So, and the people that I've heard it from, I have no doubt in my mind.
Okay.
This is nothing but 100% truth.
All right.
And it's concerning.
Right. My wife's niece works at a trauma center in Cleveland. Now, that's as far as I'm going to say. Okay. When I say trauma center, ER type situation. When my wife told me this, I called this morning. I called my niece, she was off today, and I said I need some information. I need to talk to you. And she thought my wife had something happened to my wife, because I never call her, and it was so out of the ordinary. I said, I want to ask you a couple of questions. She answered the questions, but here's the gist of the message. Please pay attention to this. In the city of Cleveland, there are certain, I know of one, that's where she works at, trauma centers that are being designated to accept mass casualty patients this summer. Now, hear me again. I can confirm this. Nothing is in writing, which bothers me, because I asked for something in writing. Is there a written directive, either internally or by the federal government? And she said no. Now, she is pretty high up, assistant to the director of the trauma unit. So she would have access to this. But here's her story. And then I'm going to turn it to you, Joe, with the story you got earlier in the week. In the city of Cleveland, Ohio, a federal agent, a single federal agent
of Cleveland.
Okay, yours is okay. Mine's in the city of Cleveland. A single federal agent had went to the administrator, or actually to the hospital administrator, and then the head of the trauma unit with the hospital administrator, and said, what we want you to do is make sure that you're well equipped for mass casualty, accepting mass patients, numerous mass casualty patients, of trauma, mass trauma patients. In other words, gunshot wounds, stab wounds, blunt force trauma, as early as July 1st. Be prepared. Make sure you have all the supplies. You will be the designated, or one of the exact words, one of the designated health centers, trauma centers. Do you understand what I'm saying? Your hospital, your health, your ER, if you will be designated as the trauma center for a mass casualty event, one of several. So check your supplies, make sure you can treat a number of patients concurrently, and make sure you've got enough supplies. And your deadline is July 1st, 2015. Okay, that's my story. And and I have, this is the first time I've said that publicly, and I intend to do a report on this using this information. And Joe, go ahead with your information.
Yeah, I received a call from a friend and a listener who used to live in Cleveland, and they still know people there. And one of the local religious leaders has a family member in a hospital east of Cleveland. And he called the other day just to explain this to me, that the federal government came into the hospital and told them, similar to what you just stated, that they need to start training now to handle mass trauma and casualties due to riots, uncontrollable riots, from beginning early to midsummer, from the hundreds to the thousands. And this place is a hop, skip, and a jump from Cleveland.
Okay.
And for them to come in, it was not local, state authorities. It was a federal authorities, and there was not specific. They were not specific on who the federal authorities were, what division or branch they came from, but very similar, echoing the very similar statements.
But by the way, the official that came under the umbrella of the Department of Homeland Security, DHS.
And there's a person in chat saying that the feds have been doing this, going around and to the hospitals, and almost like it's a procedure, from what, if I'm reading this correctly. But it's a new procedure to us.
Well, yeah. When you have a date certain, or a date they say, look, we want to have we make sure your supplies are and your staffing is capable of handling a mass casualty event as of July 1st.
Then you take it a step further. They have a location. They have a time. Well, what's going to happen? Why do you think there's going to be unrest? Unless it's going to be so widespread, they're just going everywhere. But for two reports to come in the same week,
and well,
either they're just making their way to this area, or they are doing it for a reason.
No, my contact has worked at this location for 12 years. Not once in 12 years has this happened. So, we're 14 years out from 9/11, right? So you would think that, and again, my question to this source is this, has this happened before? No. Did you feel this is normal? Like we just want to make sure in the event something happens? No. This had the feeling of, okay, so we are expecting something, so make sure you're ready. Now, you can't, this is a source within a hospital being visited by the Department of Homeland Security outside of, or in Cleveland. Yours is outside of Cleveland. Very specific information, quality control check, or just making sure that, if something happens, it had a different feel, flavor, and texture to it. This was to her, this was something that was notable enough to let us know, because she knows, of course, what we do. And she felt very unnerved by this. Now, your source, and I thought of that right away, Joe. Man, there's something not right here, obviously. Boy, that's a brilliant statement, right? But I do believe that the government, is expecting or even planning for something to take place. What could it be? Well, let's look at the information. July 1st in my case. Yours, midsummer, right? Not so
early
specific.
To midsummer.
Early to midsummer. Okay, July 1st would be early to mid.
Mm-hmm.
So the information seems consistent. Trauma, mass casualty event. Mine was pretty specific in terms of, well, it could be anything from bricks falling on people to gunshot wounds to whatever trauma would be. Now, we're not talking biological. We're not talking. No, that's not what we're saying. We're saying trauma cases. What would bring that about? Rioting. Well, what would bring rioting about? Now, this is speculation. Anything, right? I mean, a monetary collapse. You've got
Cleveland is getting so terrible as a city. It's like the new Wild West. It's like the new New York City or New Orleans. And they were the murder capitals of the country.
Right.
Cleveland crime rate has been skyrocketing in the last few years.
But
that could be a number of things. It could be a power outage that lasts a couple weeks or longer. It could be
usually the power outages just have the result of more childbirths 9 months later.
I will say this: that I know that there was a unarmed young African American who was killed by police there not too long ago, and I don't know if that trial's still ongoing or what's the status of that. But we didn't see any craziness when that happened, which speaks to Cleveland and how they handle things. But how many times can that happen before it does cross? I mean, people do see it as, this is enough.
Well, what would make, I guess my concern is what would cause a federal agency to send, because they know that people will talk. They know that people will say, right. And the other issue to this, and I should point this out, nothing was allowed to be put in writing. And that was odd. Okay, when I say nothing was allowed to be put in writing, think of it this way: we don't want you to issue any directives. We want you to be ready. And it was a verbal message conveyed in person, not by fax, not by email. So that, to me, the method of conveyance speaks to some level of it being on the QT anyway. Now, I understand the hey, maybe we don't want to make it a self-fulfilling prophecy. Maybe we don't want it to get out on the alternative media like it's getting out now. Or at least they've got some level of plausible denial about it, which would make us look, like numbskulls, okay? We don't know, but it certainly was unusual and is unusual. Look, is this what is this? I don't know. But everyone listening deserves to know. And I'm wondering if it's happening in the Middle Atlantic area, meaning Cleveland, Ohio, and points around there, is it happening elsewhere? And if you have any information, the listener, if you're in the healthcare industry and you've got similar information, we would appreciate it. We'd be so appreciative if you would let us know through our Contact Us form. And we will assemble, compile a report and issue a statement or issue an investigative report noting the locations and the gist of the information. Because
we need to get is our hands on the DOJ employee manifesto, where they go ahead of time and start setting up, because we know they're already in these towns, but when this stuff happens, it's been proven in St. Louis and in Ferguson that the people who are the ones that are creating and starting the violence have actually been off-duty police officers, instigators, agitators who come in from other areas of town just to do this. Kind of like what was that job, the union buster?
Yeah.
Only it's probably a higher paying, more risky job. But, I mean, you can go on YouTube and see protests from other countries when people start to get violent. I know one specifically, I think it was in Greece. You had these people throwing Molotov cocktails, trying to turn cars over, and the crowd caught on to the fact they were all wearing the same pants and boots, and when they got caught, they tried to jump behind the police lines, and it turned out they were police officers.
The template appears to be the same. And if you look at, one thing that always amazed me is how quickly can you have professional signs made up for protesters from the moment of the event to the spontaneity of the protest, and all of a sudden they're walking carrying these professionally made signs. Okay. That should tell you something, and you're right, Joe, about the attire, the similar attire of people, the protesters, and their methods of operation. So what we have, we believe, is a network of professional agitators, and that's probably being nice, that are operational throughout the United States, that are either on the payroll of or working on behalf of rogue government agencies, including but not limited to the Department of Justice. Now, when I say the Department of Justice, I'm talking about the rogue element there, because undoubtedly there are people there who are clueless, they're doing their job, they're working, but you've got that. It would be like the CIA, the shadow government, if you will, that's actually running things. So please, folks, be aware of this. We don't know what's going to happen. The July 1st date, maybe that's an arbitrary date. I don't know. We don't know. We're just passing this information along for what it's worth, for any value it may hold to you. But please, we ask that if you have information personally, we'd like to know. And we will keep your name out of it. Just, the location and pretty much the gist of the information, so we can warn others. Because, like I said, hey, we've got family in Cleveland. We're concerned. We have family elsewhere, like you. I mean, each and every one of you we consider family. We'd like to be able to serve as a clarion call for something. But let's do it smart. Let's do it intelligently. Let's do it so we can see danger and get ourselves out of harm's way, or at least prepare for it. And if you're alone or infirmed, and these, it concerns me the most, the people that have no one. Man, if you've got a family and friends, a structure of support, consider yourself the luckiest people in the world. I mean, but if you're alone, hurting, look at us as being part of your family. I don't know if that makes sense, but we want to. You've got a special place in our heart, and we'd move mountains to make sure that you're okay. I don't know if that makes sense, but. Because I would look at it like a daughter or a sister, having a daughter or sister living in like big old bad LA or something. Your heart's out there, and you want to make sure that she's okay. And if you know trouble is coming, you want to be able to warn these people, and you want to make sure they're okay. And we want to help. So this is why we're giving this information. I hope that helps. And it's not meant to frighten anyone. It's meant to alert people out there. And I'll be talking to Steve Quayle about this as well. Because I really think this does fit with some of the information Steve's been getting. in other parts of the country. But if you have any information, please go to hagmanandhagmann.com, click on the Contact Us form, send it to us. If we don't respond back to you, that doesn't mean we haven't read it. We haven't, done the compiling of the information. All that means is we're busy behind the scenes getting the information to where it needs to be, and that's the big thing. So this summer, who knows? But expect at some point the ATMs to be turned off, the cash to be limited, the gas prices where it's available to go up, and these things are coming to this country. But we can't stop, regardless of what's looming, we can't stop fighting for what's here and now. Like Coach Dave Dobmeyer, we have to fight for justice. We have to fight for justice for the sake of justice. Who will stand for justice for justice' sake? We must. Each one of us must. That's my view. I mean, I don't know how you folks feel about it, but we must stand in the gap. We must play our position, the position that we were called to play, whatever it might be for you. And please know that everyone's position is going to be different based on personal circumstances. We're not given the same set of instructions.
And again, Coach Dave passed information along to us that, and I just want to mention this is people in the chat room are talking about Mr. Ken Hovind. His trial has been delayed. So before you head down, anybody who planned on heading down to Florida for that, take a step back and check the information again, because the prosecution filed for some kind of continuance and apparently received it, so the trial's not going to be starting when thought. So,
about Ken Hovind, my view is the same with Irwin Schiff. Irwin Schiff basically received a life sentence regarding taxation from a court who the judge said, the Constitution has no place in my courtroom. Since when? Ken Hovind, basically the same thing. This is unconstitutional.
Yeah, and it's
we
terrible.
Need, you know what? We need the people. We need to be there. We need to stand up and say, this is wrong.
And you're exactly right. At the same time, to look at the positive in this situation, the Lord does have us all where He has us for reasons and I've learned this the hard way, for reasons we can't even begin to comprehend at this moment. Not that justifies what's happening to him, but
correct. And let's make that clear.
An example to others. It could be something that's going on with him. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, and there was we could tell you different stories about people who were. There was a priest or a minister in Poland who was forced underground, actually into the sewers, or not the sewers, but the subways, once preaching to congregations above ground. When I say above ground, I'm actually physically above ground and overtly preaching. And during the communist takeover, was forced underground. And the communists thought, okay, we're going to put this very effective preacher, this very effective minister, into the worst job to make sure, to neuter his ability to get to the people. And he was placed as a janitor in the subway system in Poland. But what he did was by virtue of his position and by all the people that came through, he ministered to more people, and as a result was more effective in that position in saving souls than he could have been or was above ground. Now imagine that. So sometimes God does work. God does put us where we need to be, but that doesn't make it right, of course. The pushing them underground. So while we can, we still have to fight. We have to make our presence known. And if that gives us a day or two or 100 days of normalcy for our children, then praise God. We need to do that. I was just thinking as I was talking, 10 years ago, I wouldn't be talking like this. I was telling Steve the other day, what am I doing? I mean, and he said that God has put us in certain positions, and He's ready. And as He's moving us around, and maybe some of you have been moved around recently. Maybe you've moved physically, but don't know why, or out of the blue, suddenly, bang.
It seemed like everybody we talked to there for a few months was moving.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
I believe, and after talking with Pastor David Langford, I believe that God is actually putting His people like you and like us, in positions where He needs us to be. And we just have to be obedient. Sometimes it doesn't seem to make any sense, but we need to do it. And while we still can, while we have the opportunity, we need to fight for the people who don't have a voice, the Kent Hovens of the world, the Erwin Schiffs of the world, the people incarcerated. We need to fight. And the other thing I want to mention this, because this has been on my heart too. There's talk about ISIS being here in this country. I have no doubt in my mind that ISIS is here, but it's not necessarily just ISIS. It is the Islamic. It's the combination of Islamic terrorists.
Let me jump in here with a headline.
Go ahead.
That I found that was very interesting about ISIS. ISIS leader, and let me make sure. I don't know if this is the one where I need my spelling name here. No. Okay, ISIS leader declares Islam was never a religion of peace. Islam is a religion of fighting. He calls on Muslims to fight for the caliphate in a new audio message.
Wow, that's a true statement. I mean, imagine that.
Yeah, the leader of the Islamic State has declared Islam is the religion of fighting in a rare audio message which called on Muslims to fight for the caliphate. Islamic State released the message yesterday, claiming it was from its leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, as the extremist group executed 26 civilians before reaching the gates of the ancient Syrian city amid fears they could destroy it. The audio message posted on militant websites features a voice that sounds like al-Baghdadi's, exhorting all Muslims to take up arms and fight on behalf of the group self-styled caliphate. In the leader, who had not been seen or heard from in months, said Islam was never a religion of peace. Islam is the religion of fight. No one should believe that the war that we are waging is the war of the Islamic State.
So,
and it goes on
anyone who, to the people from the Council, right. So the people from the Council on American Islamic Relations, although we are not the Pam Geller and Robert Spencer's, hosting free speech and Muhammad drawing events. So we still, look, we don't have to be. We just have to tell the truth. The truth is, Islam is not a religion of peace. Oh, wait a second. You're going to shut us down or try to shut us down because we're being intolerant and we're actually, this is hate speech? No. We're just simply repeating al-Baghdadi's message about Islam. But folks, understand this. In St. Louis, right now, there are sleeper cells getting ready to fight that have amassed weapons, and I mean a lot of weapons. Why St. Louis? Why did I mention that? Because we have information.
Gateway to the West.
Well, we've got information about coming to us through reputable sources.
One of these days you should share some of that information.
Well, it's right here on my desk. There's St. Louis and Chicago and a couple of other cities who there are people who are Muslims who are gathering, waiting the word to go out and to paralyze their areas.
Let me play the beginning of this audio because I think ISIS captured Ramadi, government headquarters in Iraq.
Right.
And listen to how they did it. I'll only play the thing.
Still
slowing down the internet. But yeah, if you heard how they attacked, they said, I think 13 suicide bombs, probably coming in succession of one another, then having certain people, go into these areas to set up shop, other people pulling bulldozers in, creating this shock and awe type situation. And
sorry, tomorrow we'll work on our alphabet.
No, my brain's fried. You know when you get so tired you can't sleep?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I had one of those nights last night. And but yeah, they are I don't know, maybe becoming more coordinated at a primitive level. I don't know.
You're correct when you say that. The coordination is, and you know that's why, folks. You go back to Benghazi. You have to go back to the Arab Spring. You have to go back to Obama. I mean, look, I understand Bush, folks. Obama was never vetted. We don't know who that guy is. And you know, the very people who mocked us, who said that we were crazy, that it was his bona fides that were a distraction. It makes me ill to think that this could perhaps have been prevented.
I disagree with.
I know you do.
I mean, I understand with the word afterwards, because whoever would have been in his place, the agenda would still went through.
Right, but at least
I mean, you look at Mitt Romney. He was the first to do the health care in the state, the first to do the gay marriage in the state. At least the domestic things we're seeing, he was in line with and agreed with what was implemented.
No, I get where, and I agree with that. I do. It wouldn't really make that much of a difference. However,
but
perhaps the rapidity or the rapid nature of the acceleration.
You know, you question his birth certificate, you're marginalized, called a racist, a hateful bigot for having legitimate questions that are still unanswered. But, you know, like I said, these people at this level, it doesn't matter. It's the agenda that matters. And ISIS was here before Obama was ever a candidate. It was, you know, set up back in the Bush days, back before that, the Mujahideen with Al-Qaeda. It's the same CIA ops, the same groups of people. That, you notice how they move from country to country.
Yep.
They always seem to have capabilities far beyond what any. I mean, go out and try to do this with a group of your friends, and you know what I mean. Yeah. Are you going to be able to take over media complexes and, you know, get anti-tank weapons? And it's just crazy. It's the boogeyman, but the boogeyman actually has a deranged purpose. They've convinced these people that they are, you know, who knows what they've told them to make them, you know. You say there's no moderate Muslims, or there's no. I don't believe one of two. There's peaceful Muslims, or they're extreme.
They're not acting on their beliefs, or they are acting on their beliefs. Okay, I mean that's if you're a Muslim, you're either acting on your beliefs or you're not.
You see a lot of people convert to become with the Islam Nation in prison, and
yes,
people who are born into Islam as a religion, they usually, for the most part, never do anything, you know, violent. But you do have those who do, and then they use the religion to hide behind it.
In one of these boxes, Joe, about a year and a half ago, I mapped out the network of the New York City prison system, where they're the actual people that are administrators of the New York City prison system are involved in the recruitment of people.
Try to get a Christian group, a legislative push group together, and put it on social media and see how far that gets you.
Right.
But these people are able to operate on Twitter and Facebook. But, you know, heaven forbid you post a Bible verse on Facebook and, you know, you're banned for life. Or it's just insane. There was somebody recently who was deleted from Facebook for something ridiculous. I forget what it was. A couple of weeks ago. I don't know.
It was Christian oriented. I mean, it was because of the Christian faith.
And it was a position they took against homosexual marriage or something. And Facebook deleted their account. But, you know, get a sword and a bandana and say you're part of a caliphate and you want to kill people. Well, you know, here's a computer to get twisted.
But
it's crazy.
This is coming with the privatization, if you will, or the which we start. at least with good intentions, we were going to talk about the internet changes. You see, by ceding control of the portions of the internet, and that involves ICANN, and folks, you can research this yourself. But the objective here is to centralize and to control the content of the internet. It's really a censorship move, and people will say, well, that's not what it says. That's not what this move is all about. But what that's exactly what it is. It's just not written in crayon for people like Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert and the other yucks. Okay, a late night pseudo talk show host can understand, or this is coming to this country, to America, every place in the West. Man, I'll tell you, I can't believe I'm looking here at the program clock, and I see that we're down to the last 8.5 minutes, and folks, I'm sorry we didn't take any calls. I really am, and I apologize to you, but there's a lot of heavy stuff. I don't know if you've gotten much out of tonight, but if you've got nothing more out of tonight than our resolve to double down and to take the fight to the streets, if you will, our resolve now to fight on your behalf, to fight for righteousness, then we've done our job tonight. Maybe we were a little light on the news. Maybe we were a little light in things that you think might have been important. But if we came across as being sincere in our intent to tell you that the gloves are coming off, that we're taking the gloves off right now. The gloves, we've taken the gloves off. Now we're going to be pushing, and now we are going to take it to the streets. You're going to see our resolve strengthen and tighten, and our alignment with Coach Dave Dobmeyer and his initiatives, and Greg Jackson, and the information, getting the information out there, necessary information, and to protect you who can't protect yourselves because of whatever your station in life might be, to help you as well, to be with you as well. We're all in this muck and mire together, and as long as we stay together and bring others into the fold, we can, as a remnant, prevail. We will prevail because we're already fighting from a position of victory, but we can be more effective as a remnant by being on the same page, I believe. And if nothing else, if we got nothing else out of tonight's program, don't underestimate our resolve now and our ratcheting up the fight, our input in our fight, because we are now fully taking the gloves off. We now have to make a stand. We now have to fight against the evil that confronts us. And I'm speaking from the heart. Maybe I'm not not maybe. I know I'm not the most articulate guy in the world. But I hope I can make...
And that makes me borderline
No, it doesn't.
No, I'm just
but you know what? I hope I can make up for that by my resolve. And, we have to stick together. We have to fight together. And we have to go after the evil that we see out there. And maybe we can only change one small thing. But by changing that one small thing, perhaps, just perhaps, the ripple effect, the consequences from that one thing we can change, or the one thing we do change, maybe that'll touch the lives of hundreds, tens of hundreds, thousands, who knows how many. But let's do it for the sake of for righteousness, for the sake of justice. because that's what we're instructed to do. And I think that was clear yesterday with Coach Dave and Coach Greg, and I think it was clear with Steve Quayle, and I think it's been clear, and I think it's a common theme. And you know, it's our responsibility if we're shut off tomorrow to make sure that we're not shut off completely, and that's where we're at right now. And I believe strongly, I strongly believe that Rick Wiles said this real quick. He said he was in prayer and he asked, God, when can I stop warning people? And he said the answer was when the cities were laid to waste. And that's the way I feel too. When do we stop? We only stop when we don't have any breath left to sustain us. That's when we'll stop. We're not stopping, in other words. And we're doubling down. And we're tripling down if that's possible. We're putting everything into this now. Everything we got. And stuff we don't have. But we're bringing the fight, metaphorically speaking.
We took neighbor stuff, didn't we?
Yeah. But that's what it's all about, and it's about saving others, and about protecting others, and about spreading the word. Because this life that we live is to me is very short.
Yeah, very temporary.
And I'll tell you something: as you get older, you realize how short it is. Oh, but
nobody's guaranteed it tomorrow.
That's right.
And on top of that, we have calamities and prophetic scriptures that are yet to be fulfilled, and they're not easy on the mind.
No, they're
to think
not.
about, let alone live through.
Yeah.
So I believe as we become, more disabled, more chaotic here, it does serve a purpose to build up those who are in Christ and prepare them for the actual worst or the parts that are going to be much more horrendous and terrifying than the things we think are terrifying and bad now.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, talk about going from a well laid out agenda for the program to.
Well, see, that's why it was a good show.
Kind of.
We needed to get into some of this stuff, and you want to read the headlines, just listen to the news.
You can.
I don't know, different times each hour, you can catch a few different stories, but we know what's going on. The country is leadership.
And each
decadent.
one of you knows what's going on.
The majority of the secular world, let alone the church, self-proclaimed church world, is just as bad as as ever, more depraved and immoral than the church. Self-proclaimed Christians are more immoral than a lot of secular people. It's all backwards. Everything's upside down and twisted. And that's a big red flag that we need to become more diligent. We need to become more aware of what the Lord wants for us in these days, where He wants us to be and what He wants us to do.
And the last thing I'll close out with is this: I am not afraid, and I hope none of you are afraid to put your name out there, to put your beliefs out there, to walk proud with your beliefs. I've got a bumper sticker or my logo or our logo on my vehicle, and I was thinking, well, boy, in fact, not only thinking, somebody said that doesn't that make you feel like a target? And I said, you're a target long before any logo is on your vehicle or any. You know what I'm saying? So we're not afraid to put our names out there and put our own agenda out there for everyone to see. I mean, to me, and I hope you don't feel that way as well. Don't feel like you have to operate in the shadows. You be proud of your beliefs, and together we will prevail. And you're never alone. You're part of our family, and we certainly care about you, and we love every one of you, and we thank God for each and every one of you. Believe me when I tell you that. From your emails to your cards, we thank God for you and for your prayers. We thank God for you. Folks, that'll do it for us. Until, if anything does happen of significance over the weekend, we will take to the airwaves. Otherwise, we'll see you on Monday with Augusto Perez. Joe, great program.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Good night.